November 12th meeting of the Durham Planning Board shall come to order. Come on. We'll start with the roll call.
Peter Howd, alternate.
Darrell Ford.
Richard Kelly.
Peyton McManus.
Michael Barron, Town Planner, and Munish Nanda and Gary Whittington cannot make it tonight.
Paul Rasmussen.
Sally Tobias.
Heather Grant.
Robert Sullivan.
Julian Smith, alternate.
All right, and for some reason,
Mine was acting up too. I don't know what's going on. I had it up and it disappeared.
all right, all my regular members are here. So,
Oh, except
No,
Gary.
Gary's not here.
Gary?
Gary's not here.
So
All
we
right.
will need to appoint.
Then, Peter, you're sitting in for Gary tonight. Peter?
Real tonight, Peter.
I know, yes.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. I would like to add an item under other business, so, which would be the, just a review of the downtown, the status of the downtown changes that the town council had been looking at. Is there anything else that somebody wants to talk about? All right, accept the agenda as amended.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, town planners report.
We don't have anything new for the next planning board meeting on December 10th. The board is meeting once in November and once in December due to the holidays. But Paul and I will figure out which other item amendments to put on the agenda. But I should be able to have a draft of the conservation subdivision, first rough draft for you to look at that meeting 4 weeks away. Interestingly, we have had, there's some scammers that have gotten very proficient at pursuing applicants, and a number of people, applicants that have projects in the works have gotten an email from some party, and it's kind of convincing, saying that it's from me or else from Tracy Cudler, and that you have a project in the works. We see that you're up for approval this coming Wednesday night, and here is an attached invoice for you for $4,500 for planning board review. Please be sure to wire this money to us as soon as possible so that the planning board is not delayed in approving your project. And they say, don't send us a check because there's something's down.
Right.
So here, send us the wire to this immediately so that your project's not delayed. And it's very well done. It's quite convincing. And fortunately, it's easy for them to do it. And fortunately, I'm not aware of anyone having paid it, but people have sent us a note. We got this, why didn't you tell us about this $4,500 earlier? But I'm skeptical about this. And then we got back and say, please, this is a scam. We have a big note on the website in several places. And just want to let you know that that's out there.
Can you add that to the application, so when they do the application? Right on there,
Yeah,
it
I
says
think we
don't-
can. Right. We will do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this town wire money? I mean, a lot of places don't even
No.
accept it because it's the riskier way.
No, I mean, it's clearly a scam. I mean, because we tell the fees right up front. All of our communication is very direct and kind of personal, email or in person. We would never have people wire money. So, but still, it's very professionally done. And we have had a handful of people say, what's the deal with this? How soon do you need it? Why didn't I hear about it? But I'm a little skeptical here, so.
Yeah, that's bad.
I've been exposed.
That's all I have.
All right. Reports from board members who serve on other committees?
Just next Conservation Commission, we'll be talking about that overlay and figuring out more of that.
Okay.
Well, I think people are aware of the conservation, you talked about that at the last meeting, the public session that they had a
Yep.
couple weeks ago. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Energy Committee and IMAC, nothing really relevant going on for us there at either one of those right now.
Town council?
Town Council?
All right, so on the zoning changes that we did the updates on from the state rules several weeks ago, public hearings for those were set for the town council meeting on the 17th. There was a presentation updating the update of the climate action plan. It's actually quite good. If you've listened to it on DCAT, you'll probably find that very interesting. The town council sent the building heights on Main Street back over to the planning board with some details, which we'll discuss, I guess, in other business, so I won't go into that. And then we worked on budgets, so that's sort of where we were on the 3rd. And then this last Monday, on the 10th, it was a budget-only discussion for that evening. So just starting to go through a review of the Durham 2026 budget. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Right. Public comments.
Good evening. Roger Hayden, 44 and 46 Main Street, owner. That's Hayden Sports in the Durham Laundry Center. I just want to bring my thoughts to bear on the building height. I think in the last council meeting, 4-story buildings were approved with a 42-foot maximum height. I believe that was what was agreed upon. If I'm incorrect, correct me.
That's right.
So I wanted to, since then, I've had a discussion with an architect, a developer, and 2 realtors, not my own. My property currently is on for sale out there with Colliers, both buildings and the property and the businesses. And the first reaction when I mentioned that it was a 42-foot height was pretty clear. You don't have enough room. You can't really make 4 nice stories within 42 feet. The concept was first floor would be commercial, so you want 12 feet anyway because you'll have sprinkler heads. You might want fans, you want a little airiness. That leaves 10 feet max for the next 3 stories. So that really crowds in the sprinkler systems through the ceilings, maybe venting for heating, air conditioning, things like that. I don't know a whole lot about buildings, but aside from my own, which are 1 stories. So I just wanted to bring that to bear, that the request was be a minimum of 45 feet so that there's a little extra room there, and 50 feet if you really want a nice building with maybe a gabled roof, things like that. A little higher ceilings if you want people to have 8 or 9 or 10 foot ceilings. I haven't pulled out a measurement, but it just makes it a nicer building, so it's going to be higher. But architecturally, I'm sure it would be almost as pleasing as a 42-foot if it was 50 feet, depending on how you design it. So that's my input on it. I am for sale. I've got someone interested in buying it, so these issues are starting to come up. So that's my 2 cents worth, and I think I really hope you do that because it'll help the sale go along. And I'm retiring in the next year or so, I'd like it to happen. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, Roger.
Are there any hands up in the Zoom?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. In that case, we'll move on to our first. Excuse me? All right, item 8, 12, 14, 16 Jenkins Court, 2-lot subdivision. 2-lot subdivision and develop .28 acre parcel with 3 buildings. Tom Christie, Slaney Enterprises owner, Adam Fogg, Atlantic Survey, Central Business 1 District. map 106, lot 65.
Can everybody see the plan over here? Should I move it into the center? Center. I think you all have a copy of the plan, and you must be familiar with downtown. So you can see the line that's being proposed.
Could you use the microphone, please?
You can see that there's a line that's being proposed, it's dashed, that is shown here on the plan. It would basically separate the brick building that has Bami Restaurant and the Sushi To Go, that building with the associated apartments above, onto one lot, conforming in size with sufficient square foot and sufficient frontage, and the other part would still be conforming as well, and it would have 14 and 16 Jenkins Court, which currently have on the ground floor University Market and Wentworth Douglas Hospital, Mass General Hospital, with the associated apartments up above. No change to the grading, no change to anything, just the addition of the lot line that would create two separate lots.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Christie? Darrell?
One of the notes refers to a sewer line taken from a DOT plan, but I couldn't find it on there.
Yes, so when I sat down with Michael and Todd Selig, we went over the things that were going to be on the plan. That was one that was
Okay.
originally earmarked as not necessarily needing to be on there. I've gotten an email from Michael, which I think you might have gotten as well. And so the water lines and the sewer lines are going to be shown on the plan. I can tell you where they are.
Okay.
The water line for 12 comes straight in off of the water notation here. There's a water gate valve there. And then there's one here that comes in and feeds both off of the street. And the sewer line for this building comes out this way. Sewer line comes out this way. And this one goes right here to the sewer line there. So those will be shown on the plan.
Okay.
But they don't cross over any of the lots, and they come straight in off the street for the water, and they go straight off the other side for the sewer.
In Michael's review, he mentioned the deck that's between the two buildings.
Yes, so there'll be
And-
language that's written as part of an agreement between the potential two different buyers. And he did mention that there were some things that weren't noted as what they were. So
Yeah.
these small square boxes down here, those are the condensing units for the walk-in coolers at the University Market. And then these here are the air conditioning condensers for the respective buildings.
So
they'll
they would be included
they'll-
in an easement.
Correct, so that the people could
Yeah.
maintain them and have access
Right.
to them and that
Okay.
type of thing.
Good.
What is the water tank for?
When the number 14 Jenkins Court was built in 2014, there was a need to be able to balance pre- and post-flow conditions with regards to rainwater. So that tank gathers rainwater that comes off of 14's roof, and that was part of the conditions that we had to have to, there was grass there previously, so there was a need to be able to balance the post-construction conditions versus the pre-construction conditions, and that was to control the water. So it's it's to deal with water.
Is it underground or on top of the deck?
Underground.
Yeah, underground.
Let me clarify. Mostly underground, there's an exposed end to it. So it was originally built kind of into the hill. I don't want to mislead anybody, but
Right.
you can't see it, it's completely under the deck.
Right.
But the end, if you were to remove the deck, you could see that it was partially above ground.
Good. Anyone have a need for a site walk on this one?
Already did it.
We'll have We need to All right, then, public hearing for December? Michael?
Yeah, and so I recommend it be accepted as complete with a proviso that the applicant revise the plans, show water, sewer, gas, and electric utilities on the plan, on-site, and in front of the property, label the boxes that are on or crossing the proposed lot line, and explain the deck. And as long as we get those at least 2 weeks prior to the December 10th meeting, then that's plenty of time to review it.
And is the intent, Mr. Christie, to show the easement between the two buildings on the plan?
I would think there would be a written document that would go along with the approval. So it would be noted as to what that space was, and then have that, be in writing as a written document versus on the plan.
Could we at least get a note on the plan that references the easement between those two properties?
Yeah, that's straightforward.
Yeah.
We'll just add a note,
Sure.
see easement,
Yeah.
separate easement, yeah.
All right, I'll move that we accept this application as complete and set a public hearing for December 10th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9, Dame Road, a three-lot subdivision of vacant 23-acre parcel located at the northwest intersection of Dame Road and Durham Point Road. Greg Miller, Dame Road Properties owner, Valerie Shelton agent, residents coastal and rural districts, map 227, lot 30.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Valerie Shelton with Appleville Real Estate, representing the applicant, Dame Road Properties LLC, which managing member is actually a Durham resident, the Miller family, who live at 283 Durham Point Road. I definitely, before I start, really want to thank Michael and Tracy about that whole wire fraud thing, because we're one of the people. And fortunately, for that, my client did not pay that. We actually received multiple emails on this. So I appreciate what action you're taking for that. So we're here tonight presenting and requesting the acceptance for substantially complete application for the three-lot subdivision. On the corner, it actually is on land that fronts not only on Durham Point Road, but Dame Road. The proposal is to actually have the frontages all on Dame Road. The survey was completed by Adam Fogg of the Atlantic Survey, and the wetlands were all delineated by Mark Jacobs in the spring of this year. And then after meeting with the town planner in September, we had Mark go back out and designate any somewhat poorly drained soils. So that has been added to the plan, and then the calculation of buildable areas. So the proposal is to actually subdivide the 23 acres into 3 building lots. Audrey Klein, the code enforcement officer, witnessed all the test pits, which were done in September. Lot 30, which is the primary lot, or the subject, the original parcel, that actually has a state-approved septic plan in place that was the prior owner received in 2024. Those test pits were not actually witnessed by Audrey. So obviously we went back and did different test pits, and we also did the test pitting closer to the road. The other test pits were much further back into the lot. So the lot 30, which is the furthest one in, is 5.76 acres. That has approximately 300 feet of road frontage. And Michael, that's a note we have to change. That that dimension on the plan is not correct. It goes to the point, so we'll make sure that's changed. The middle lot is 8.76 acres, and that has approximately 358 feet of road frontage. And the corner lot is 8.8 acres, that will have over 1,250 feet of road frontage on both roads. All the lots meet the 150,000 square foot buildable area. It may be that this corner lot will change. Michael had sent out in his plans report about whether or not there are two small wetlands here. These two areas here, designated as poorly drained soils, may in fact be exempt from the Wetland Coast Conservation Overlay District. I have a letter from Mark Jacobs that they are not vernal pools, and he did assess these in the spring. And then, so we just need Adam Fogg to calculate out those areas to see if in fact they meet the threshold. If they're under 3,000 square feet, we'll note them, and then the actual setbacks will change, because then they wouldn't apply. We do have a lot of waivers that I submitted, probably my fault, because I went by your minor checklist, for minor subdivision checklist, and then I went through the subdivision regulations, and there were several items in the subdivision regulations that actually aren't on the checklist, but it's very unclear as to whether or not you have to meet them, so I asked for the waiver. I think there are 8 of those. After the fact, Michael had said they only apply to conservation subdivisions. But there is one on the minor checklist, minor subdivision checklist, as to some of the site conditions, having to show paths and, interior stone walls, surveying all the trees. This is a completely tree-covered lot. We just thought that would be onerous. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So we'll know at the next meeting whether those smaller poorly drained soil areas actually qualify as wetlands or not.
Well, they are wetlands,
They're
but
wetlands,
if they're under 3,000 square feet and they're not vernal pools, they're exempt. So the applicant, there's no setback under our ordinance if that's the case.
All right, that would be definitely helpful.
Yeah.
That front lawn. Okay.
So Michael, just a clarification, how are they treated? There's no setback, but you can't fill them, or how does that work?
Correct. Yeah, they're still subject to state jurisdiction, so that you cannot alter them at all without state approval. But they could go right up to them. The state has no setback requirements. That would be helpful, give you a lot more buildable area.
It would. We'd probably want people to stay away from them anyway. We have a nice building envelope. This is 23 acres, so this, we're looking at the scale being showing these small buildable envelopes. But you've got over 100 feet on the back end to be able to put a house.
I was walking the property earlier today, and I saw 3 different colored flags.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain what each of those are representing?
I wish Mark was here to do that, but I certainly will get an answer to it.
Perhaps.
Orange is definitely boundary flagging. Blue would be his wetland flagging. This is kind of consistent, and there's probably pink and black might have been out there,
There's a gold,
or gold.
yellow, yellow, blue, and orange.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that. There was also a lot of flagging from before, when this property was on the market last year, that we didn't understand. Mark didn't understand, Adam didn't understand, but I'll follow up on the flagging colors.
And the blue was the test pits were all in blue.
Yeah, those should have also been marked as to,
Yeah, they were
but they
in
would say
blue.
TP,
Yep.
yeah.
So Val, can you explain the logic why the buildable envelopes, it's a good spot having them out by the road?
it's a great property, it's beautiful, and why encourage anyone to put in long driveways back? We purposely elected not to test pit away from the road.
But that's certainly not preventing someone from doing that.
Right.
Right.
But they on the, they would need a condition, excuse me, a conditional use for a driveway that would be quite long to go to the rear of the lot. The middle one, there's a buildable area in the rear. Again, that'd be a long driveway. The corner property, that buildable area in the back is probably not workable, very narrow.
Nothing else? All right, we're ready to accept this, and December 10th again, so
Is it complete, Michael?
Right, it's complete. We need a little more information showing the zoning line, setback line for WCOD marked as such. But some of this can just be, this can be precedent conditions. That's all fine as precedent conditions. Sorry, go ahead.
And we'll need to clarify exactly which waivers are required and which ones.
Yeah, some of those
Ask for them.
waivers, I think all those waivers are appropriate for this kind of subdivision. Some of them are a little bit, the subdivision regulations need to be rewritten, and I will have a draft for you soon. That's going to be a project. But they're very confusing because most of them are oriented toward conservation subdivisions, and it's not real clear if you have a small subdivision. So I would recommend just granting the 8 waivers because some of them it's unclear what they should apply to, the way the regulations are written, but they're all appropriate or not even applicable. You could do that tonight, or if you're comfortable accepting it, you could look at that more carefully at the December meeting.
Yeah, I for one, would like to be afforded the time to look at them. I'm not familiar with the waiver requests that are being made.
And we're going to request the same thing, that all the other information that you're requesting will be here 2 weeks prior to the December meeting?
Yeah, in the third paragraph.
Because there seems like you have quite a few on here.
Yeah, I think they can just revise the plans, and then there's, as is always the practice, there'll be one final set after approval.
Yeah,
to
all
be
the
done.
changes, and I've been marking up the plan and sent a follow-up email, for a checklist to the surveyor, to make sure that he updates the plan, and we'll get them to Michael well before that date.
So you can accept it tonight without granting the waivers. I think they're probably straightforward, but it's understood that if it's accepted tonight, subject to reviewing the waivers, getting some additional information. In the event on December 10th, the planning board did not waive something, then you would still need to provide that afterwards, so, yeah, just so you know.
And just a question on the waivers. In the application, I count that there are 4 waivers requested, but you're mentioning 8. And then there's some number of check marks in A. So I'm just trying to make sure I know that the 8 waivers that were
They're all in there.
in your summary doc.
No. Was sent out.
They're in the application,
Yep.
but they're not on your checklist. That's
Right.
So, because you don't have a specific, within the
So they're
regulation.
it's just the 4
what's needed.
additional that are not in the checklist.
I believe so.
Yes, because the checklist is oriented toward a minor subdivision, but I think the applicant was being very diligent in going through the regulations carefully, but some of those pertain to conservation subdivisions.
Thanks.
All right, then.
And then on the waivers, Paul, I think you probably agree that the whole place is rocks and trees. So to lay that out seems, you could just use a big highlighter.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
All right, then I'll move that we accept the application as complete with a public hearing for December 10th.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, did you ask if the board wanted a site walk?
Would we like an official site walk?
I'd like to see it, whether it's with an official site walk or not. I'd either like to get permission from the applicant to walk the land, or if there's enough of us.
Well, permission was
Yeah,
granted in the
yeah.
application. They
Oh, I
provided in
didn't
their
know
letter.
this. Yeah, it would be,
So, which is why I went out there this morning. And, yeah, I might go back out again when I have a better eye, but I was primarily walking the buildable area of that corner lot. So that was the only thing that was really concerning me. But, yeah, there's a lot of granite out there and stone walls.
so the question was put out there, does anyone want to do
we
a
wanna-
public, Julian's in?
Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
a sidewalk.
All right, it gets dark pretty early now, so we're going to need to schedule it probably on a Saturday, I think. If we want to, so that would be,
When's our meeting?
how does December 6th look?
4 weeks from
For
today.
everybody?
Okay. It looks promising.
I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah.
All right, morning? 10 o'clock?
Yep.
Yep.
10 o'clock. Great, thank you.
But any of us can go out there on our own, right? We don't have to wait
Yeah.
for that.
I would recommend waiting till we hear what the flags, with the mount.
I'll follow
markers
up on
mean.
that.
I'm pretty sure I'll
And then
figure it out.
it appears to be a lot of hunters out there too, so just be conscientious of that.
We're lots of
It's
orange.
not
There's been
posted.
lots of gunfire out on that part of town lately.
10 a.m. on December 6th.
Don't take my pet deer with me.
All right.
Thank you.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Bring your gun up there, wait a All right.
That's shotgun.
Item 10, public hearing for Riverwoods Phase 2, Stone Quarry Drive. Site plan for development on the northerly side of Stone Quarry Drive, including 2 senior housing buildings with 55 units, a clubhouse, a maintenance building, and parking areas, utilities, and other site improvements. Conditional use for work within a 75-foot wetland buffer, including portions of the clubhouse, driveways, the location of a section of Stone Quarry Drive, sidewalk, stormwater facilities, underground utilities, and other site work. Lot line adjustment for relocation of a section of Stone Quarry Drive, Riverwood, Durham, care of Natalie Blanchard, owner, Eric Sari, Altus Engineering Engineer, Chris Bolt, attorney. This is Office Research District, map 209, lot 33.
All right, good evening, everybody. For the record, I'm Eric Sari from Altus Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. Next to me, I have Chris Bolt, who also doubles as a stunt double for Santa Claus, I understand. Kind of fitting, I got to admit.
Got the beard, got the belly.
It works, it works. I also have Pat O'Keefe and Natalie Belanger from Riverwoods with me, Eric Harmon from AG Architects. Vicky Martell should be here eventually. She's on her way, I understand. She's from Woodburn and Company. She's the landscape architect. And I have Bob Bollinger from GPI, I believe, on Zoom. So, go into this real quick. I'll blow through the changes that we made, very minor, and then open up some discussion. Let's see here. Page down. Not a lot has changed at all on this. This plan does call out the overlay that DPW is looking for. You can't really see it at this scale, but it does go all the way out to the existing pavement joint on 108. So all this area right in here, all the way to the realignment, will get freshly paved when the project is over. This plan shows the generators that we talked about at the last meeting. There's one here and another over here. Those are oversized. They're sized to handle fire pumps, which we may not need anymore, so they may actually shrink a little bit, which is good. And the pads will shrink with them. We also got rid of a parking space here, left the pavement but striped it. That's to allow a truck to turn around out there. Most notably, the Amazon guy is going to get in there and realize he can't get out, so that's going to be allowing them to turn around. Down here, we did increase the size of this dumpster and recycling enclosure. We decided to go the whole length of the building just to give as much space as we possibly could for those uses. And we added an ADA space down here next to this existing striped island that was previously on the plan. And we also have the trail relocations, this area here and this guy right in here. Those are areas of the existing trail that need to be relocated to make way for construction of the stormwater BMP as part of the project. Everything else is pretty simple. You can see the generator in here, so it did adjust the grading, similar to this area here. We did tweak the utilities a little bit. We now have a gas service going out to the generator that is natural gas, that is not diesel, so there won't be any tanks. And of course, the electrical service is with it. Right in here, we do have 2 EV parking spaces. So we have 2 spaces for this side of the project. And we also have 2 more right here. We also put in conduit to this location here and down here for future EV spaces. So in total, the project can go up to 8 EV spaces really easily. And then, of course, we have the whole mess of conduit servicing the generator, the EV spaces, and the transformer. This pad here, actually, let me go back a few sheets here. You can barely see it, but this is a bike rack that's intended to serve the community center. We also have bike racks underneath this covered area here and underneath this covered area here. So there's also internal bike racks to each building, so the residents will have internal bike storage, but this is if anybody wants to take their bike out and go across campus. So there is the provision for that. Let's see. The sewer changed a little bit. We did change the alignment just a hair to go across these utilities at a 90-degree angle, and also put the line on the edge of the pavement rather than right down in the middle of the street. The intent there is to allow at least one lane to remain open to traffic for the duration of construction. Lighting did not change. This is the conditional use permit that we went back to the Conservation Commission with. This shows the generator here and here, those little minor alterations, plus the additional impact for the trail relocations, which are in here. Conservation Commission moved to recommend approval of that conditional use permit application. Details, 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 all the fun details. Not a lot, Vicky's not here, so I'll step in. We do see the generator here. She did add some planting around this side. These are spruce trees here. So I believe they're spruce trees. Around the generator to hide it, similar to up in this section here. And these 2 spruces did move forward. They did not get eliminated when we expanded this particular dumpster pad here. And on the architecture, I don't know if Eric wants to get up and speak to it real quick.
Eric Harmon, AG Architecture. I think to speak just to the changes, we did go through and add some windows at the base of the building to align with the windows that exist within the residential units, so that you can see on those primary faces, all elevations of the building that face the roadway, that window and fenestration pattern continues down to grade. That is the most significant change to this development. As we go to the next page with the clubhouse, no real modification here. The only thing that's been updated is to properly reflect the storefront doorway at the courtyard, the club. That was not distinguishable as a storefront entry in the previous submission, so that is up to date. Continuing on, we do have the maintenance garage with no significant changes. I think that's
it.
Yeah. Yep. That overlaps the work that we did architecturally.
Now, there will be some minor tweaks to the plan. I did correspond with one of Eric's minions today about the buildings. They're playing with a few things in terms of internal utility rooms. Where's the water room? Where's the sewer room? So the water lines are utility lines, the sewer lines, and the electrical lines may move on the site plan. That's not going to change the parking lot. This is all underground. And then there was one change. There's a door. I don't know if you can see it right here. that jumps out of nowhere. And we're like, okay, why is there no sidewalk there? So we're going to add a sidewalk to it, linking it with the rest of the site, obviously. I guess that's the back door to the kitchen. We all miss that, but it won't change anything in terms of the plan except a little bit of sidewalk. So we do have that pedestrian access.
Does the sidewalk go to the parking lot?
Yeah, it goes to the sidewalk that runs along this perimeter here. Yep, so it'll all be integrated. The whole pedestrian network will be able to access that point if needed. And I think that's it. Yeah. We had a little back and forth about I guess it's the Water and Sewer Commission. Is that right, Michael? Is that what it's called?
Right.
Which nobody knew about. I guess it's a holdover from back in the day, from what I understand. They did meet today, and I guess they did recommend to approve the project. There's supposed to be a public hearing for that, and eventually it goes to town council. And that would be a condition precedent that Michael did put in the draft motion before you, which includes a few items that I'd like to discuss.
Water and Wastewater Committee.
Yes, Water and Wastewater Committee, thank you.
It's not a commission.
Yep.
And they met and didn't have any objections to adding this to the system, right?
They convened today and they voted to recommend approval to exceed the 5,000 gallons per day for the water. They're going to be meeting later on the water extension and the sewer extension. But the only thing that in the ordinance requires a recommendation from them prior to planning board action is to exceed 5,000 gallons per day. So that's all going to the council soon, and it's a precedent condition for water extension, sewer extension, and the 7,000, 8,000 gallons a day for water.
Yep. Well, Michael put together a very nice town planner's recommendation. We'll go through a few of them. Some of these, a lot of these actually are already on the plan. So I don't know if you guys want to keep them in here or strike them. That's up to you. Bicycle racks, I did talk about that. We have them. As far
You say you added, we have the 4 outside?
Yeah, we've got 6, actually. We've got 2 at each building and 1 at the community center. So those are on the plan.
And those are outside?
Those are outside, yes.
So are the changes you just went through, those are on the October 15th plans, right?
Yep, dated October 8th. I think you got them on the 15th.
All right, right.
Yep.
So those are the most recent plans?
Those are the
and
most
that's-
recent plans,
okay.
yes, sir. So I don't know if we need that condition in there that's already on the plan. I can leave it, it doesn't change anything. The second one being the construction management plan. It's looking for how construction is being managed, staging, parking, fencing, signage. That's typically done by the contractor once we get to that point. It's not really something that the engineer would design at this stage of the project. I think that would be better as a separate condition further on along down the line and not added to the plan set itself.
Right, so if it's okay with the board, we'll just make that a subsequent condition.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Similar to that, I think would be number 6, the irrigation system. That's usually a design build by the contractor. So we do not get any design ahead of time, so it's not something that we usually add to the plan because we don't have it.
Yeah. But you will have an underground irrigation system?
We will have an underground irrigation system, absolutely. We want to make sure all these plantings that we're going to spend a lot of money on, we want to make sure they live. So we will have irrigation.
So I assume that's, unless the board objects, that you would submit that as a subsequent condition?
Exactly. I think that might be included with the building permit application. And then the last one, number 7, light fixtures. Those cut sheets are on the plan on sheet C22. And then moving on through other precedent conditions.
Eric, you said, on which sheet are these?
C22.
Do your drawings say irrigation plan to be included?
It makes reference to it. It doesn't say to be included because it's normally just a bid item. We say irrigation system, and the GC will go out and get an irrigation guy, and he'll do a design build. Say, hey, I can build this system for X amount of dollars, and a plan will come with it. It's not something.
Regarding the light fixtures, and we've run into this before. I don't know if you have. You do show. You show at least 2 of them. Maybe that's.
Yeah, those
everything.
are the only 2 that are in the parking lot area and along the pedestrian ways.
Unfortunately, a lot of these updated designs for light fixtures are really not dark sky compliant, and they do cause glare. We have had problems with some of these. We'll need to coordinate as a precedent condition to ensure that those are fully dark sky compliant. So why don't we, if it's all right with the board, why don't we change condition number 7? The applicant shall comply with the town to ensure that all fixtures are
Yeah.
full cutoff. Is that dark sky compliant? Is that all right?
That works. I believe these are, the little logos, they've got a whole bunch of logos. One of them, I believe, is dark sky.
So who's going to review that? It's not going to come back to us?
No, no,
Is
no.
that going to be DPW is going
Yeah,
to
it'd be
review it?
staff review.
Coordinate with me.
Yep. And then moving on to item number 21, the excavation plan. A supportive excavation plan is typically something you see if you have a massive excavation where you need to bench the sides in loose soils. If you're digging, a 50-foot, chimney down to a subway, things like that. You wouldn't see it on a sewer trench at all. In this particular case, the contractor, Severino, is going to be using trench boxes and plates. Each trench box comes with a stamped design, designed and stamped by a professional engineer. Those are on site at all time. In my mind, that supersedes the need for a separate plan because they're just going to drop the box on the ground. It's that simple. So there's no need for a separate plan because it's already been designed by an engineer. So I would prefer to strike that if possible.
All right, so that's going to be a call for the board, if you can review this now. That is a precedent condition to provide that. This was in the consultant Ty and Bond's report, and it was in the Public Works comments, recommendations to do this, but it's up to the planning board.
Which item?
This is number 21 on page 5.
There we go.
And I don't have any good guidance for you on this.
So I asked April Talon why they included that in their thing, and it had come from Ty and Bond. I'd be comfortable not requiring it. My experience has been a competent contractor with trench boxes has to comply with OSHA already, and they're not going to get in a trench and do something illegal as far as the structure goes. So I'm not sure that I see any real protection offered by this plan here if they are already following OSHA requirements. And how deep are you going? You're going,
Probably about 13 to 14 feet at the deepest point.
but if you guys are, do you say anything in your drawings about you're going to use trench boxes?
We don't, but that's just the contractor's means and methods. But I did confirm with Severino that that's the method that they're going to go with. And if it was any other contractor, I might question it, but Severino, I have 100% confidence in.
How much does it cost to create these supportive
It's-
excavation plan?
I've been doing this for 28 years and I've never even seen one. So I have no idea. It's not common.
Yeah.
Big Dig, sure, they had one.
And we didn't use them on the middle school project. I didn't use them on a project. I just did a main that had a lot of big holes. And
In 54 years, the only project I've used them on was the Big Dig.
The Big Dig. This is not the Big Dig.
Not even a little bit. All right, so do you want, as board, want to eliminate that condition?
I'm fine with it.
I'd be comfortable with eliminating it.
I would as well.
Any objections? No objections.
Sounds good.
Okay. Moving on to 23 fire department turnarounds. The fire department's seen this a lot. Brendan Sullivan and I have talked quite a bit. He's never said no or that he's unhappy with the layout. At this stage, I think it's a little late to add big turnarounds that can handle a fire truck, but if the board wants, I can communicate with him and get an email if that's what would satisfy this condition, Michael.
But you're comfortable that Brendan O'Sullivan,
Yeah,
the most recent plans.
They've looked at it, because for the fire pump, they've looked at it ad nauseum. And he's been very
I know
proactive.
they had, I wasn't sure if they'd seen the most, yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's
they've
fine.
seen it,
Yeah.
yeah. So we can either strike that or I can get an email.
No, I think that's fine to
Okay.
strike it.
Okay.
This isn't like it's a long, narrow driveway. They can easily back out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. The other one, 25, confirm that interior accessible parking spaces meet ADA requirements. That's more of a building permit thing, but I believe that everything will meet ADA. But that's something that Audrey would review, I think, when it comes in.
Okay,
Here,
that's,
so-
yeah, that's part of building permit.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't see any problem deleting that.
Yeah, it's going to get reviewed. It's just that it's in the wrong place. Number 27, submit a long-term operations and maintenance plan for drainage. We did that as referenced in item number 42. So I think we can strike that because you already have it.
Oh, okay. All right.
and then jumping quite a bit. Number 40, Stone Quarry Drive reclamation, that is something that is in the plans now. And that does go all the way to 108 from the realignments at the corner. And I show that. This is the best one, the dark shading here. This is where the realignment starts. Goes all the way out. And this note here says extend it to the mill and overlay out to 108. And that's also shown in a different place. Right here where I call out the limit at the existing pavement joint. So that is on the plan, so I don't think you need the condition.
Oh, we want to keep it on there.
You can
just
keep it
to
on
be
there then if you
clear.
want, no
Yeah.
problem. Okay. Next one, the monument sign. We removed the sign, or we're going to remove the sign. Right now, it's shown right here. Talking with Riverwoods, they don't feel the need for it. They think it might sort of segregate the community. This is a separate part of the community where they're trying to promote, the whole thing to be one integrated entity. So we're going to kill the sign. And that is all I have. Permit update, I guess. There's one more thing. We did submit alteration of terrain. Michael, I have a hard copy for you. That went in on Friday. Water and sewer permit from DES, that was sent to April on Monday, I believe. The DPW has to review it before it goes to the state. the DOT did approve our concept for the offsite. We're waiting on some additional survey to do the actual design. Once that design is complete, it goes back to District 6, and they'll move forward on that permit. And I think that's it for our state permits. So here we are.
I'm sorry, I missed the AOT one. What was that?
Yeah, it went in on Friday, and Michael needs a hard copy, which I have for him.
Paul, I had a couple of questions. So what about the water control, the solenoid, and all that?
In lieu of a fire pump and a tank in one of the buildings to give us adequate fire pressure, because it was so close to the requirement, and the model assumed that everything was off, the whole town system was as low as it could possibly reasonably go, they looked at it and said, well, there's this valve. I think it's at the technology drive tank, I believe, or something on technology drive that's manually actuated now. So a guy's got to go out there in the middle of the night. If there's a fire, by the time he gets there, it's going to be too late. In this particular case, they said, well, why don't you do something remote controlled, something that can be activated just by push of a button from probably the treatment plant, some SCADA-operated valve, and we are looking at implementing that in lieu of a tank. So we'll be paying for that upgrade to the town system.
So you guys are committing to that, and then you're gonna...
We're going to look at the pricing first. I think it's going to be cheaper than a tank and a pump, so if that comes down to it, we will definitely do that.
And the lawyer in me is questioning whether this would not also be of a general benefit to the town. I don't know, not being an engineer, not wanting to even play one on TV. It sounds like it's something that may be of help overall. And I'm just professionally paranoid enough to, if it's a large dollar amount, is it all ours? Or is there a dollar cap that the board is wanting us to incur? I don't know what it could be, though. So I'm just putting that out there. What was the intention here?
I think the intention was to save Riverwoods money, to not have to
We
buy a
like
fire
that
pump.
idea.
Yeah.
It's just, this came in at the 11th hour, and we're trying to figure out what does it mean.
Yeah. Well, a fire pump is super expensive, and that
Yes,
tank's
exactly.
annoying. So I think you'll figure it out, the cost, and it's going to be a good deal. I think.
Yeah, that's my opinion as well, but
Fair enough.
I understand that.
This is not a reference to a specific term here, is it? In the draft notice?
I don't think
Or
it's
is
in
it-
the...
It's in the plans you're
It's in the
talking
plans, it's in the letter we got from April today.
Right.
Yeah, it's not, it's basically, the choice is, you're either going to put a fire pump and a tank in to have
Yep.
enough pressure to make the sprinklers work, or do this minor, what appears to be a minor change in our system, pay for it in the Durham system, and it gives you enough pressure and flow.
So I don't think that's something the board is looking at tonight, but you would, if there's issues, you could speak with April and
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Rich and
Fair
town
enough.
administrator.
And it is one where we would not be installing something in your system. We would be paying to have it installed, is my understanding, correct?
From what I understand,
How
yes.
it's written.
I just want to be sure.
Shall fund the purchase of
Yes,
installation.
yes, exactly. So the end result is one way or the other, the development will have adequate fire pressure, either through the valve, which I think is the most likely path here, or a fire pump in a tank.
Yeah, but you're not, if the board approves this tonight, that doesn't, not
It's an
speaking
either
to
or.
that issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
You're not
vet the
bound by this
issue
approval.
of
Yep.
what was the expectation of the board.
What about the parking islands? There was a comment in there, do we need to break up the parking lots? It seemed to me like we have a dearth of parking spaces out here, sort of add a little thing in the parking lot, you lose 2 spaces. I'm not sure visually it really breaks up that parking lot.
I don't think that's needed, at this location, it's not prominent public location, the parking lots are deep on the site, I don't see any need to do that.
But does that require any sort of official action by us, whether we call it a waiver or, because the requirement's every 40 feet or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, it's some,
I think it's
something
every-
find it.
It's a certain number of spaces, as I recall.
All right, maybe it's 40 spaces, and
Something
we're
like
just
that.
over that.
Yeah.
Well,
A
it
couple
wouldn't hurt,
locations.
just to waive it, to cover it.
All right, let's just make a mental note of that.
And then we also talk about the pilot in here. We're all comfortable that the pilot gets approved before a CO? Is that how it was done last time, or was it done prior to construction starting?
Let's
It
see.
was done prior to construction starting last time, because it was done before. They finished their pilot negotiations before we gave final approval. But that's not a requirement.
I mean, we'd rather that be done in the very near future as a precedent condition.
You have it right now as a condition preceding number 24.
Yeah, we say it may be accomplished later, prior to CO, but we would, but that should probably be with the approval of the town administrator if it's delayed beyond precedent condition.
I'm expecting it to be in the short order. My hope is we get the last 2 numbers to drop from the bingo machine, next week or 2.
Well, you're in close communication on it now anyway.
Correct.
So it's going to be impending, so.
And then the last one I had was, it talks about erosion control prior to construction starting, but are we going to allow tree clearing prior to establishing erosion control? Because you kind of can't.
Yeah. You typically would put it out there after you cut the trees, but before you pull the stumps.
So I would say that clearing the trees is not site work, it's
Tree work.
tree work.
Exactly, I agree
So
with
just
that.
so everybody's clear, because here in our thing, we say you got to have the erosion control before you disturb dirt.
I think that the pulling of stumps would be that disturbance. I think that would be the trigger.
Yeah.
Well, do you intend on harvesting that timber this winter?
Not sure, actually. That's a good question. We hadn't even thought about that. That would be ideal,
Yeah.
given the frozen conditions are always better for logging, but seeing that this site's going to be 100% disturbed anyway, and it's not a true timbering operation out in the middle of the woods that's going to stay woods, I don't think it's necessary, but yes, it would be ideal.
I don't know. I'm on the fence with that, Rob.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that.
We've got a lot of work going on, within a buffer. And should we grant those conditional use this evening for them to do that work and encroach into the buffer, why would we not want the erosion control put in place if in fact, what I hear is that this is all going together? We're going to clear the whole site, we're going to do all the work at the same time. Why would we not want that?
Well, I'm just concerned that there's a tree right where we want to put all the erosion control, and sometimes you can't do both at the same time. So if you whack the trees and then very quickly come in and put in the erosion control at the same time, it's almost like a happening at the same moment. Plus, Severino's going to grind up all those stumps and use the grindings for erosion control because it's gnarly and twisty stuff. So I'd be okay with saying, April, monitor this while it's going on and,
Yeah,
staff.
the town staff hasn't given me much confidence lately when it comes to wetland overlay district and the work that occurs in it. So I, for one, am not confident with that.
Can you give us some
Well,
description of how you can do it well without destroying the wetlands?
the problem typically with tree removal is you drop the tree and it might land over the limit of work. And if you've got erosion control there on that perimeter and you get a skidder in there and pull the log out, you pull the tree out, you're going to disturb and destroy that perimeter control. So it's kind of pointless to put it in there when you know it's going to be toast. Typically, you don't do any erosion control until the actual logs are pulled, and then you pull the stumps. Once you start pulling stumps, you're disturbing earth. Once you do that, you need that control. But the actual logging is typically can be destructive because it's not going to drop exactly where you think it's going to drop every single time. So silt fence, perimeter control, it can get messed up pretty easily.
And that's what you're using? Because I thought Rob said we were going to make...
They have the option. We're not sure exactly what they're going to use. They can either use stump grindings or they can use the silt sock. Silt fence is allowable, but it's not preferred because nobody really installs it.
No one's using that
No one
anymore.
uses it, exactly.
That's because they don't install it correctly.
They don't install it correctly. Yeah, the sock is really the way to go, but stump grindings also work fantastic.
Yeah.
So it depends on what they want to do. We got details for both on the plans.
Well, is there a better way that, this is on page
How do we
6.
say it? How do we say
On
it?
number 31, is there a better way that we can phrase that?
Well, I think it's the parenthetical portion of 31 that's the potential issue. Because what do you mean by significant clearing of the site?
Usually we mean anything other than placing what you need for the erosion control.
Well, I think they're covered. They're covered the way you described it. No significant site work, including any significant clearing of the site. If all you're doing is harvesting your timber, that is not significant clearing of the site, right?
It's not significant.
Depends on who you talk
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But
Depends,
Yeah, that's kind of the argument that I'm making, Richard, is that the tree clearing's not the site work that we're trying to really
Yeah.
protect
All
against
right.
here.
Well, why don't we say no significant site disturbance?
Yeah.
I like
or-
the ground disturbance.
Yeah, no
right?
significant ground disturbance.
Yeah, I mean, and it's there, it's just that
yeah,
we have including clearing of the site. It's really including grubbing of the site. You're clearing and grubbing ultimately is what you're doing.
Exactly.
And the clearing of that site should be able to be handled.
Well, that's good. That will change our standard line. No significant ground disturbance, including any significant clearing and grubbing of the site.
Grubbing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say clearing
don't say
at all.
use
I'd say
grubbing instead of clearing.
Or
Including,
just say no significant ground disturbance.
Yeah.
and just leave it at that. No significant,
Yeah.
Yeah.
other than what's needed for the erosion and sedimentation. Yeah,
Yeah, but that's not significant.
okay. All right. We will change that.
Anything more, Rob?
No, thank you.
Julian?
I have a few questions. The first is, are these going to be mainly one-bedroom or two-bedroom units, these 55 units? Or any of the units bigger than two bedrooms?
We do have 2-bedroom plus dens. It's a mixture of 1s and 2 bedrooms, fairly even. And they're all units that have been used within the main structure themselves. So if you want the specific number, I can pull it up for you quickly. Because I do have that breakdown set up. We have 3 different 1-bedroom plans, and of that we have 12 in one building and 15 in the other, of the 26 and 29. And then the others are the 2-bedroom plans.
Then I'm going to ask another question, which you may not want to answer, and as proprietary information, but roughly, what is, when you divide the cost of this whole development over the structure of the building and so on, roughly, what is the average cost per unit? I'm just trying to get a sense right now of this kind of quality construction, how much each unit would cost on average.
You're talking construction cost per square foot?
Not per square foot, I'm just talking about an average unit.
Unfortunately, as the architect, we don't have that information.
Okay.
And not that it's proprietary, but it's something that we're working towards understanding surely.
Yeah, I'll explain. I'm only asking this question because we need more housing, workforce housing, housing for middle-class families, small families, individuals, couples without children, and we just don't have the land available. But we do have a number of sites in Durham that are very much like this site. That is steep slopes, wetlands down at the bottom, ledge, and so on. And that may be one of the things we're going to need if we're going to have any opportunity for young faculty, families, people working in the town, et cetera, to actually live here, which I think we need and want. So I'm wondering, would a typical unit cost as much as a single-family house, or would it be cheaper?
With this particular development in our zoning, we will be falling into a senior occupancy.
I know.
So we wouldn't be pricing against a single-family home.
I understand.
But typically, yes, their prices are going to range in and around the cost of a single-family home, and
Okay.
that's how a lot of the pricing effort is established.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a couple questions. The multi-level building, that looks like it's 4 stories. What's the height of that? Just, what's the height of that building right there in terms of feet?
We comply, I know that.
So we have it on there with the top of the roof midpoint being at 149, 3 3/8, and the 100 is our base level. So it's a 49-foot tall to the midpoint of the roof.
Got it. So 49 feet midpoint to that. Yeah.
If this is relating to the previous question about how tall should a 4-story building be, as an architect, I can tell you that our typical market rate development is a 9-foot ceiling. And then the structure that you're looking at for a 9-foot ceiling in a wood frame configuration is going to be 2 feet deep. So we typically bring in the perspective floor height of 11-foot floor to floor. So anytime you're looking at a 3-story building, it's going to be 33 feet, a 4-story building is going to be 44 feet. That's our rule of thumb, and that's without taking into account the height of the roof. And whether you're to the bearing point or to the midpoint, it's typically going to be higher than the 42 that was established.
Plus, I think that previous gentleman was talking about retail on the first floor, which has a taller ceiling.
And you have parking on the first floor,
We do.
which is I think 11 feet.
Correct. It is no
Yeah.
taller than the rest of our structure.
And just one more. The EVs that you're adding, are those going to be functional EVs or just sort of plumbed for EVs? Or are they going to be, someone going to be actually be able to charge on that?
Yep, two chargers, dual chargers, so 4 spaces that will be functional. 2 more spots will be EV ready, so all the conduit will be there. The beauty of that is it all goes into a box, a junction box, so they can expand and add new conduit very easily. So if there becomes a demand, let's say Riverwoods wants to electrify their whole fleet, adding additional charges will not be a problem.
And then so the expansion out, once you get it all in there, the expansion out, and then is that, and you don't have to, is that being driven by regulation or is that just being driven by perceived demand from the?
Perceived demands.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, the uptake has not been as great as everyone had hoped for EVs, but it's going to get there eventually. So we need to do something to anticipate that, and we do have a few residents now at the main campus who do have EVs. So we're planning for that.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
But you say I see there's 2 EV spaces in the two main parking lots, those are EV ready to go. Those are functional, right?
Those are functional,
You're
yeah.
talking about the inside EV?
There's nothing on the inside. We don't want to do any charging on the interior for fire purposes. That's typically what you don't see. We got 2 spots right here that's going to be fully charged, ready to go. 2 more over here, also fully charged and ready to go. Another point right in here that's going to be ready for 2 more spots without the charger. The same down here for 2 more spots.
Oh.
So adding in 2 additional chargers is going to be easy. All you need to do is buy the charger and hook it up. The infrastructure will already be there.
And then just one follow-up. Your residents don't, I don't believe your residents have dedicated external parking spots that are allocated, like your number 103, your number 104.
Not at this time. They may in the future. A lot of the main campuses like that.
Yeah.
But the interior will feature that.
The interior will
Yes.
be, external will be shared. So
Yes.
those would be shared chargings for the whole
Yeah,
community.
exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
You're not going to park there if you don't have an EV,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Is there a design setback from the building to those EV chargers that you try to follow?
Not that I'm aware of. You might be aware of something, but
There is not. By code, you can put them within the building or directly adjacent. It is a choice to keep them out of the building.
there was some resident pushback to putting it inside the building. So they're concerned, rightfully, that it may be a fire hazard.
Just one more?
And my final is the landscape planting and the trees. I imagine that you're very incented to keep those alive and functioning. Could you just speak to that over multiple years? We've had an email where someone's just requesting that would be extended out. I tend to think that you're probably most focused on making sure those survive. But if you could just speak to that, the multi-year viability of those.
Certainly. So the plan calls for a 2-year guarantee on all of the plant materials shown on the plans. There's also a 2-year bond that's stipulated in the regulations for that. And then the regulations also stipulate that the landscape be maintained in perpetuity. So in my mind, and I think in everyone's mind, the part of maintenance is the replacing of failed plant material. I don't expect that will happen, but I think between the 2-year guarantee, the 2-year bond, the fact that we're tied to maintenance in perpetuity, and the example that Riverwoods Durham has already demonstrated, I don't know if any of you have visited the campus, but it's been in place for years. It's maintained very well. There aren't holes, failed plant material, missing trees. I'm not necessarily asking you to trust Riverwoods, but I think they've proven themselves, and that's bolstered by what's already in the regs. So I don't feel that it's necessary to further extend that to an additional 3 years. I'm confident that all of the landscaping will be maintained and be there for the long term.
Same with the Exeter campus as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks.
I take it that you've, because there's been some discussion about it, and that is the Underwood Engineers Report dated November 5th. You've all had time to digest that. And one of the first recommendation that they make is checking data and repeat a flow test at the back of the Phase 1 loop. Apparently, it had low flow.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Let me find the plan here, so I can show this thing.
750?
Yeah.
Okay, can't really see it. Well, maybe the next one. I can't really see it. There's a hydrant right about here, and another one over here, and they flowed at maybe 1,000, 1,100. There's one at the back on the same main that went at 750. It didn't make any sense. So the thought was maybe the valve was stuck, wasn't all the way open. There could be some junk in the line. So the idea is to go back there and reflow that just to check it and sort of figure out, well, what the heck's going on here? Because if you're on the same line looping around, it should not be any lower than the other ones.
Right.
It was just a little oddity that we found when we did flow it.
Okay. So do we need to make that some sort of, it's an existing condition, but we certainly wouldn't want the fire department to have 25% of the design flow back there, or,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Or 75%.
it's 750 versus 1,000, but it's something that they're going to do. Riverwoods is going to do anyway, just because it's maintenance.
It's on that side
It's
of
on
the
the
campus.
it's on the list.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
And then the system itself, the fire protection system, that's part of the building permit, I would think, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's not uncommon, Michael, for, large-scale buildings like this to require some additional outside resources, like the planning board has used with both Underwood and Ty and Bond, for someone to review that design of the fire suppression system, right?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. And
I would add, the fire suppression design does go to the state fire marshal as well. So there's another layer of this that's going to be looking at it.
And I assume that in Underwood's report, pardon the pun here, it's a drop in the bucket when we talk about the irrigation system, and it really does not need to be taken into consideration.
It doesn't, and there has been loose talk about putting in a well or two solely for irrigation purposes. The main campus has one right now, and it's working well. No pun intended there.
Yes, it was.
Yes. What's that? Yes, it was. So they're talking about a well or two on the site just for irrigation purposes. That also has a knock-on benefit of not spraying chlorinated water onto the site. So,
Plus, you save money. 'Cause you
and we'll save
on
some money
sewer.
in the long run. Exactly.
Yeah, you save on sewer and water.
Yeah.
While we're talking about Underwood, I didn't quite get, on that table 1, it said peak domestic flow for the main building was 48 GPM, but the other buildings are like double that, and I didn't get
understand that either, but it's in their math somewhere, and I trust them to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. What are people thinking?
I don't know why we would wait another meeting. There's no additional information that anyone's waiting for, right?
Yep. Correct. That's correct.
There's nothing new that's going to come in front of us.
Only that sidewalk that I mentioned before. That's it.
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to start with conditional use.
Yes.
All right, so, and just to review, page C11 has the purview of the conditional use, the light green and the gray shaded areas. The gray is on the clubhouse. I went right by it. There it is. And then the light green is the disturbance around the buildings, for the most part. So these are the areas that our conditional use applies to. The blue is covered by the variance, so we don't have to think about it. So the site is suitable for the proposed use, including vehicular and pedestrian access, availability of adequate public services to serve the intended use, including emergency pedestrian facilities, schools, and other municipal services, the absence of environmental constraints such as floodplains and steep slopes, or a plan to mitigate them, and the availability of appropriate utilities to serve the intended use, including water, sewage disposal, stormwater disposal, electricity, and similar utilities. Somebody? Pro, con?
Yeah, I don't have any issues with it, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Keep in mind, this builds up our findings of fact for the,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, if that's the case, then one could recognize that the ZBA approved these encroachments into the buffer zones. And those encroachments had to do with the buildings and the parking. Am I correct? And that was just the buildings and parking? Yes.
Yes.
One has to expect that there's going to be additional impacts associated with constructing a building or parking, and these are associated with that. So, in general, I'm in agreement with what's shown on this plan.
Thank you, Mr. Cullen.
Does that help?
Yes. External impacts. The external impacts of the proposed use on abutting properties in the neighborhood shall be no greater than adjacent existing uses. And since we're only talking about the ground level items that are occurring in support of foundations and such, there is no impact on abutting properties. Character of the site development, the proposed layout and design of the site shall not be incompatible with the established character of the neighborhood and shall mitigate any external impacts on the use of the neighborhood. Again, it's in support of the existing structures, or the approved structures, I should say. Character of the buildings, characters of the foundation, yes, the design of any new buildings and structures of the existing on the site are not incompatible with the established character of the neighborhood. This neighborhood is defined by Riverwoods, so it would be hard for that one to be.
It's an expansion of an existing.
And we've heard that design language is consistent.
Yes.
Which is nice.
But is that even applicable to us? Because the building was approved by ZBA and our conditional use is just for the grading?
Well, it's also for the community center. As you can remember, the ZBA looked at residential buildings only. You guys have the purview over anything that's not residential, apparently.
Thank you, Eric. There was another color there.
Preservation of natural, cultural, historic, and scenic resources. The proposed use shall preserve identified natural, cultural, historic, and scenic resources. The trails out to the cemeteries and such are being maintained, rerouted as appropriate to protect the environmental resources there. So that's all done very nicely. Impact on property values. The proposed use will not cause or contribute to any significant decline in property values of adjacent properties. I don't see that happening. I mean, the one building that is being established here is nestled in between the other buildings. Availability of public services and facilities, adequate and lawful facilities or arrangements for sewage disposal, solid waste disposal, water supply, utilities, drainage, and other necessary public or private services are approved or assured to that end that the use will be capable of proper operation. Yes, that's what we've been waiting until all this last few reports to confirm. And lastly, fiscal impacts. The proposed use will not have a negative fiscal impact on the town, which it does not. Does anybody have any counter arguments to anything that was stated?
No.
No.
All right.
And it's going to have a positive fiscal impact, I think.
I would tend to agree. All right, so for the conditional use then, so we'll take that.
But we also have the four specific criteria in the WCOD.
I have the 4 for the SPOD. Okay, that's,
The same.
all right. Well, there's no alternative design location on the parcel or for the proposed project that would A, have less adverse impact on the WCOD and overall ecological values, B, be workable, and C, be reasonable to expect the applicant to utilize. I don't see anything that would have any way of doing it that would have less adverse impact unless the community center was removed entirely, which I don't think would be reasonable for the expectations of the expansion. The design, construction, maintenance, operation of proposed structures and activities within the water resource and buffer will minimize soil disturbance and adverse impacts to water quality to the extent workable. We had a fair amount of discussion to ensure that would be the case. Mitigation and restoration activities of the area being disturbed will allow for the site to perform the functions of the water resource and buffer to the extent workable. Planting of native or naturalized vegetation shall be included as appropriate, which the plan has. And the proposed project will not have substantial adverse impacts to known rare species, rare habitats, water quality, aquatic connectivity, or wildlife corridors. Which I don't see happening either. Everybody agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
I just have a question. When we talk about alternative locations, the community center, remind me why it couldn't go across the street?
You have similar issues on the other side, and from a standpoint of that interior wetland. You had that, that is the buildable envelope across the way, not counting the setback from the road.
Thank you.
All right. Where's the... that.
Do you need a motion on that, Mr. Chairman?
I do, because my...
Let me try this, and you tell me if I got it right or not. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve for conditional use for work within the 75-foot wetland buffer, including portions of the clubhouse, driveways, the relocation of a section of Stone Quarry Drive, sidewalk, stormwater facilities, underground utilities, and other site work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It needs a second, though. It needs
Second that.
Thanks.
Seconded by Heather. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor of the conditional use?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Is there anything more, Michael, before we move on to the final action?
The waiver on the parking lot islands we touched
Yeah,
on?
let me find
I don't
that.
know the section.
Get
yeah.
that
So
specific.
while he's digging for that, there was a couple of other items in tie and bond that I wish to just bring up. Let me just make sure. We talked about some of these. Existing 24-inch culvert was one of the comments that
Yep.
came
That's-
from Ty and Bond.
That is right here.
Gotcha.
Yep, going right across north to south. We looked at it. It looks in really good shape, surprisingly. Even though it's been there for quite a while. It's an RCP pipe. It's true to grade. Looks like it's flowing fine, no obstructions.
Okay, but it wasn't like videoed or anything? You
No,
weren't
no,
running
no.
a
This
camera
is one
through it?
you can. It's so big you can see it if it's
Yeah.
undulating as it goes underneath.
Yeah.
It's perfectly straight.
Great. And just by saying that, you're getting that into the record of evidence of your review, which is,
Yep.
I think, what Ty and Bond was looking for. Thank you. So that was a visual inspection that was completed by you, sir, or your
It was
staff?
one of my minions did it.
You have minions.
Assistant.
We have Mr. Bolt inspected as well.
Way above my pay grade, sir.
I'd like to assure Mr. Bolt also that none of the engineers up here have any desire to play an attorney on television.
Speak for yourself there. We talked about the status of the permit that was just recently submitted, if I heard you correctly.
AOT, correct,
Yeah.
yep. And wastewater.
That's all I got, Michael. I hope I bought you enough time there.
Yeah. Anyway, it's section 5.8.11 of the site plan regulations. say parking areas shall be broken up into smaller, parking lots into smaller areas, not to exceed 40 spaces unless otherwise approved by the planning board. And the main parking, the deep parking lot has 48 spaces. So, the board could require that there be some landscaping separating the back portion of it, unless you determine that that's not appropriate to do. It's pretty far from the road. I don't know that that would accomplish anything, quite frankly.
Well, plus it's treed all around.
I can
Howard.
understand if this was a highly used public parking lot, but this is a private parking lot.
Private parking.
And it's, like I say, it's back in the end of nowhere. We're trying to get, we already removed a few parking spaces, I believe, from the original proposal, which was trying to make up for a dearth of parking. And, and we also went through the hassle of just providing the conditional use to try to, because we couldn't keep it entirely out of the wetlands buffers. I would not be, if we suddenly said you have to break it up, I would, and I was the applicant, I'd be saying, well, give me more, I want the same number of spaces, let me keep going further into the wetland buffer. So, in the sake of not having to go into the wetland buffer, I'm willing to let the 48 slots go as approved by us with our acceptance of the application.
Totally agree with
I don't
that.
think we need a waiver for it.
No,
Okay.
you actually don't need a waiver, it just says unless you approve otherwise, so.
Everyone's good with it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Approve otherwise. Is there anything else that's outstanding?
Waiver the impact fees.
The school impact fee, and that's part of your, if you approve it, that's incorporated into this.
Which, in my mind, is included as part of the, actually, I spoke with Todd Selig about that earlier today, and he is okay with us waiving it because, in his mind, it's all part of the pilot discussions, of whether that gets wrapped in or not wrapped in. And so it should be handled as part of the pilot review, not something that we have to worry with. So us waiving the fees is very appropriate.
I could see, because it is part of the pilot, that makes sense. But I know that we, in another development, said no. I think that any new development should be contributing to our school system. It's important that we're supporting, the fact that there's a fee that applies to that, I think is appropriate in other areas, but I
Yes.
see it being different in this case. But I think as a rule, I
As a
think
rule, we
that
will
we
look at
should
it very
stop
carefully, but
automatically
yes.
waiving them just because we assume that people are going to live there without children,
Exactly.
like our student housing situation. Okay.
And to that, though, I also think I remember that it was the downtown.
Correct.
Where we
Yes, that's the
where we
first-
didn't waive that.
Correct.
And then, so may want to have a little bit more discussion on that.
Well, that is, that was at
Student housing.
10 Petty.
The 9/11 building.
10
9/11,
right.
9/11 Madbury.
Well, do we want to say explicitly in your discussion about it, like the reason we're waiving it is not because it's people who aren't going to have kids, it's because it's going to be addressed in the pilot negotiation?
I
As
think-
what's the fair cost?
I think it's because Todd is negotiating it as all part of the pilot. I think that is the reason.
Are we saying that in the document somewhere?
Yeah,
Yeah, say
Yeah,
that somewhere.
Because I think it needs to be clear that that's different than
Well, if
another
you
housing
put-
development that might go up.
it's number 660.
So does that then become an administrative? On our
For today,
side,
you mean, or for other projects?
no, for this, so where does that put this, the impact fee?
That puts it into the pilot negotiations with the town administrator.
Okay, and then the town administrator will work through that, as opposed to us not providing the waiver on that earlier project.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
So, but we do officially have to waive.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
So-
it's incorporated into, you can make a
It's
separate
incorpor-
vote
it's
if you wish,
incorpor-
or it's just part of
okay,
the,
so it's in the conditions,
Yeah.
in the notice of decision.
and I'm including language that it's part of the discussions for the pilot.
Very good. Does that meet the applicant's needs?
Yes, we were asking for the waiver based on this. We just wanted to make sure it had been flagged. We are talking with Todd on the final terms of the pilot. And like I said, I need 2 numbers to drop from an outside consultant and get it over to the town. So we've got the text finalized. It's just those numbers.
Very good. Then I think we are ready.
Yeah, pretty much. That language that's there now on 60, though, Michael, you're going to suggest that you revise that.
Well, was going to simply add at the end, recognizing that this issue is part of the discussions related to the pilot.
I think that's appropriate. It doesn't need
Or
to
do
be
you
more
want to
than that.
just eliminate the second sentence?
Or you revise the second sentence, this waiver was granted upon finding that specific circumstances relative to the site plan and the use of the property, not the conditions
would
of the
kinda-
land.
I would,
It kind of implies, the way it's written now, it implies that like it's senior housing, therefore there's no kids, but that's exactly what we don't want to say.
Right.
Correct.
No,
Yeah.
I think the second sentence should reference the pilot negotiations we are waiving it because the
Relative to the pilot,
Yeah, I think
Relative
it's
to
keep
the-
it clean.
yeah.
cut the rest of it off?
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
All right. This waiver was granted recognizing that this issue is part of the discussions related to the pilot?
That's it. That's all you
Okay.
need.
That sounds fine.
And I've got notes of everything else that was discussed. You don't have to go over them again.
This has been shared with the applicant, reviewed, and you guys are good with that? Great.
All right. Would you like to do the honors?
No, someone else. I've done enough. I've earned my paycheck tonight.
Sorry, I can't. You're good at it.
All right. I'll move that we approve the application for Riverwoods Phase 2 site plan, which is a site plan for 2 senior housing buildings, a community center, a maintenance building, and other site improvements, which is on Stone Quarry Drive for map 209, lot 33, per the notice of decision as amended this night of November 12th, 2025.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you kindly, folks.
All right, thank you.
Now, just a quick question, does that include the lot line adjustment?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I want to make sure.
Yeah. Right, so that you'll be recording, at the registry.
Absolutely, yes. We're
right.
going to go through, do one final pass with the surveyor, stamp it, put it on Mylar, ready to rock.
Get it to me. so
Get
I
it to
can
you to
check
look
the
at.
deeds.
Yep, exactly.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank you much,
Thank you.
folks.
That was fun.
It's been lovely seeing you almost every month, but
Yeah, I'll miss you,
Happy
Chris.
to not see us again.
Have a happy new year.
well, may I be the first to say happy Thanksgiving to all and to all a good night.
All right.
Ho, 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 is what I thought you were going to say.
We're going to see you at Macy's, right?
Well, you can come to Castle in the Clouds for their Christmas in the Castle.
Wow. Fancy.
All right. Well, let's see, everybody's, actually, it's a pretty quiet group exiting.
Thank you.
All right, our next item, 11,
Good job, Eric.
is going to be a presentation by our town planner regarding conservation subdivisions. Do we have more business with you? No, okay.
I think it's going to be before 9:45.
Is it just a regular
It's
one?
gotta be.
Yeah.
Then use the big one. You don't need to worry. If it's just a, oh, I thought he was gonna help you. Is it a Dell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you should be able to get away with just using this one.
Hey, well, they're setting up. Paul, do you remember who seconded the
I'll
motion
leave this.
that I
Should go
made
in
for
one.
conditional use?
Thank you.
Heather.
So you second both site plan and conditional use?
Yeah, easy for if you got.
You made the motion for site plan.
did both.
You
Yeah.
did both?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Although,
Turn off
we were
for
pretty
me
close
here.
on
I was
this,
close.
on the conditional
It was
use.
close, and I called Heather. That's right. It was like buzz.
Now, if this doesn't work, I've got a thumb drive for me to go with some, I hear, okay, it looks like it's coming on.
Maybe. You just have
And
to give
the
it a second.
information that you're presenting, Michael, I couldn't find it on the town's website.
Oh, I haven't put it, but I'll put this PowerPoint on there,
Okay.
but it's, nothing's there yet.
Looks like there's plenty of room there.
What's the little
What,
voice?
for conservation subdivision?
No, I think it's the plains. I don't think it's moist. Did I miss anything?
No.
No, he's still trying. Getting there. There we go.
All right. I've got about 20 plus slides here, so I'll kind of zip through this thing. So the fellow on the right is Randall Arendt, and he is the godfather of conservation subdivisions. He's written some terrific books, Rural by Design, and several others that are really quite rich. And he actually came up with the idea and the process and all that. The image here shows a comparison of a conventional subdivision where virtually the entire parcel is used up, with a pretty nice conservation subdivision of the same parcel on the right, where significant open space is preserved. You all know the term the transect, right, by now? So it's a new urbanism term, and it's a great construct for planning. The idea that as you move from the most rural, undeveloped areas, step by step, along a gradient into the most dense center of your downtown, that everything gradually, but that things should be designed appropriately for the location. In a rural area, you have wood frame type houses. They're smaller. They may be set at an angle to the road with a deep setback, low rise. And then as you get more to the town center, you have more mixed use, more masonry, higher floors, etc. And related to the transect, a simplified version of it is the idea of urban, suburban, and rural. And that, again, each sort of area has its own appropriate design elements. Urban on the left, obviously, and rural on the right. And urban is urban, town, village, neighborhood, settlement. It's where people live in a fairly dense pattern. That's Faculty Road in the image. And the things that, the good things that characterize an urban setting are it's in core areas, it's dense, lots are small, it's walkable. There's usually a modified grid with short blocks, giving you a lot of alternative walking routes, interesting things to look at, often mixed use. And in an urban place, there's no need for significant open space. What you're looking for is density, other than maybe a central green, a playground, or buffers along streams like greenways. Suburban is actually a bit of a dirty word in planning circles. Suburban equals sprawl. Suburban sprawl is redundant. It's not urban sprawl, it's suburban sprawl. And the suburban way of building that we've done since World War II is harmful in many ways. It incorporates large lots, it consumes a lot of land inefficiently. It's very expensive because you have lines of utilities serving 20 lots way out in a suburban area, as opposed to the efficiency of a compact area. It has neither the advantage of dense, community-oriented, interesting, mixed-use urban places, nor the character of rural places, where you preserve a lot of natural features and agriculture. A lot of cul-de-sacs, which are very inefficient, traffic funneled onto collector roads, nowhere to walk to, but a lot of people love suburban homes. That some people think is the American dream with your 2 acres or your 3 acres, but there's a lot of disadvantages of it. And this, is a good example, is Bedford, New Hampshire, which is an expensive town, but it's a crazy place. It's all cul-de-sacs. And I don't think there's any place you can walk to other than back and forth on your own cul-de-sac. Now, rural is the opposite of urban. It's in outlying areas, there's open space, farms, fields, forests. It's low density, it's mostly single family, but you can have some small scale multi-unit if it's well located in hamlets like at crossroads, protect natural spaces, and conservation subdivisions are really the right way to develop housing in rural places. Now, in which district is each form appropriate? The urban form is RA, RB in the core commercial zones. Office research, Durham Business Park are sort of specialty. Well, Durham Business Park is kind of its own thing. Office research is kind of a funny mix. It's mostly kind of higher density along a spine, but then there's 1 or 2 large lots. Suburban form is, we should not zone that anywhere for large lots. It's disadvantageous, and people who want to have a 3 to 5 acre lot, there's plenty of places they can buy it. We don't need to zone for that. So the appropriate rural form is a mandatory conservation subdivision, and that should be mandated in the outlying areas, rural, residence, coastal, Orley, and Moodor. Now, the elements of an ordinance, I'm going to read through this, and then the rest of this PowerPoint is just going through these one at a time. Where it should be required, exemptions, amount of open space required, kind of areas should go into the open space, what is allowed in the open space, how do you protect the open space, and then the complement, which areas are designated as development area, what is the density, what types of housing and other uses should there be in the development area, and should there be some third designation. You have open space and development area, and which we actually had talked about some before. What's the optimal design for the development area and street layout? What are the dimensional parameters, sizes, etc.? What is the process for developing and reviewing a conservation subdivision, and what incentives are there for affordable housing? And just keep in mind, and this was we wrestled with this earlier, that while these different components are related, they are best kept separate to keep this very clear. The amount of open space, the priorities for the open space, density of development, type of housing, etc. Just as an example of that, well, I don't want to get it. It might be confusing. So again, where a conservation subdivision should be required: rural, residence, coastal, Orley, and Moodor. To be, honest with you, it should not be allowed in other zones, in my view. There's no reason to do a conservation subdivision in the Residence A zone. There's very few large parcels in the Residence A zone. What you want in Residence A is relative density. This is where we can grow and where there's a sense of community. And if there is a desire, say we had a 10-acre parcel in Residence A, and we wanted some kind of open space like a central green, or if there's a stream corridor, there's other mechanisms that you can have some open space, but you certainly want 50% of the parcel as open space. What should be the exemptions in the rural residence coastal from the requirement? The current ordinance gives 4 exemptions, and it's actually pretty good. The main one is up to a 3-lot subdivision, i.e. creating 2 new lots. We call that 3-lot subdivision, two new lots. And it's actually worked quite well. I wouldn't really, we'll talk more about this later, but I wouldn't really go to 4, and I wouldn't lower it to 2. I think that Dame Road was very instructive. That was kind of an appropriate type of 3-lot subdivision, although Paul and I talked about that earlier, whether that might be better as a conservation subdivision. That's an interesting point. At any rate, once we get into the ordinance, we can talk about the appropriate exemptions. The amount of open space that should be required, generally it's 50 to 80% of the gross parcel, but that will vary based on the zoning district. But we'll want to come up with a fairly simple formula, but that should take into consideration wetlands and open water and possibly buffers, maybe some other factors. But under the current ordinance, you cannot tell without spending a lot of money on a high-intensity soil survey how much open space you would need to have. It's based on the unusable land, shallow to bedrock, shallow to water table, steep slopes, that kind of thing. And it's very detailed on a parcel. So you can't know up front how much open space you're going to need to have, which is one of the shortcomings of the existing ordinance. What resources should be protected? It's everything sensitive, everything of high value. Naturally, here's a list of the standard things from a model ordinance put out by DES. And then you're going to have a lot of things in your open space area, your floodplains, wetlands. Your buffers will, generally all of them will probably be in your open space, but not necessarily. Stone walls, scenic view sheds. If there's a central green, even though that's a landscaped area, that should be considered part of your open space. And then what is allowed in the open space, again, each of these is going to be a separate discussion once we get back to the ordinance. I think agriculture certainly should be allowed, probably forestry, access for the residents of the subdivision, passive recreation, however you want to define that. Should there be access for non-residents, preferably, but you may need to negotiate that with the owner. Active recreation, maybe not. We talked some of that earlier. Should any buildings like a community center be allowed? Utilities like drainage and leach fields, cemeteries. So, every ordinance is different and every project's different. So, we'll talk more. You'll refine this when we get into it. How to protect the open space. It will be, at a minimum, designated permanent open space on the plat. And that's all that we need. That's a condition of the approval. It's permanent. A future homeowners association would not be able to develop that or build on it or subdivide it, because that's a permanent condition of the approval. So establishing an easement is not necessary. It can be done. A lot of conservation subdivisions also convey an easement to a conservation group or them. We would require there be a homeowners association. Most likely the HOA would own a separate one or more separate parcels. They could give an easement to the town, but generally the Conservation Commission probably would not want it. We don't really have the resources to inspect it, to maintain it. But it really should not be part of individual lots. They should be separates. Now, the number of dwelling units in for the parcel, and this is, you certainly can't read this, I guess.
How come you went so dark? With the
Really, well, I guess my gray is too dark, my background gray, all right. Anyway, it should be like the percent of open space, it should be readily determinable if you're a property owner or a prospective developer looking at a 50-acre parcel. If you have some idea of where wetlands are, you should be able to get some idea, which you cannot do under the current ordinance. Now here, just this part in green, now here is just a prospective kind of formula that might be used. You take the gross, say you've got a 50-acre parcel, you've got some wetlands and other encumbrances. You take the gross parcel size, you subtract the areas of wetlands and open water, which is a kind of wetland. You subtract the floodplains, if there are any. Subtract any easements like a Eversource right-of-way where you cannot build. And then we should subtract upland areas that are remote and cannot really be accessed. So we're not giving the property owner credit for that, although that can be a debatable point. Subtract any conservation easements, obviously, and then probably we should subtract portions of the wetland and shoreland buffers, but probably 1/2 the area, I would suggest, because they should get some credit for them. They're not as restrictive as wetlands and shorelands. And then you come up with that acreage and you divide that by some factor. Presently, it's 150,000 square feet, 3.5 acres. So it's very, very restrictive. And we'll figure out an appropriate formula. And I don't know what that number is, 40,000 square feet. But we'll look at that carefully. Types of housing, conservation subdivisions and rural development is usually single family. With a conservation subdivision, they should be on small lots. It should be concentrated clusters. But as we've talked about, you can have duplexes, you can have small multi-unit residential, because it's often on the interior of a parcel. Abutters won't see it. It won't be visible from the main road. And if it's well designed and fits in, you can have that mix of residential. What you don't want is, you don't want somebody putting up 5 multi-unit buildings and that's it, because then people are rightly going to say, what's with this ordinance? This is a rural area and we got 5 big buildings? That doesn't seem to have rural character. So it has to be done carefully. You can maybe have some limited commercial. This we had talked about earlier, that say half the land is permanent open space, sensitive lands, and then most of the rest of it is development area where your housing is going to be, and maybe your roads, your utilities, drainage, parking. The board talked about, should there be some third designation where maybe you have a little more flexibility in uses, or maybe you allow utilities to go. I don't know whether that's a good idea or not. That's something we'll want to look at. In terms of design of the development area, here are 3 typical ways that it's developed. On the left, it's just a compact area of the housing. The middle is that, maybe you have separate pods, and on the right is more of a rectilinear modified grid that's a village-style layout. They all can work. It depends on the site. And one interesting thing that I will note, in urban areas and in core areas, as a planner, I'm very sensitive to layout and design, street layout. I think it's really important that things be configured in a way that is very walkable. You have you have interesting things to see along the way. But in a conservation subdivision, it's less important. The most important that you're preserving meaningful open space and preserving natural resources. Number two is that you're able to build housing. So we haven't built a conservation subdivision in rural or residence coastal, and not since I've been here. And we need housing, and we can do this without impacting rural character. So the second most important thing is just let's figure out a way to get it built. And even if it's 5 cul-de-sacs and it's not super walkable, I don't think that's so important. We're preserving the rural character and we're creating nice, dense housing. The third priority, to my mind, is if you can design it in a way that fosters neighborhood and community and it's kind of walkable, like the one on the third, that's wonderful. But I don't think that's essential. And that's kind of related to some overall design goals and your street layout. Dimensional parameters are flexible. You can have, right now, if you do a 2 or 3 lot subdivision, it's a minimum lot size of almost 3.5 acres. But when you cluster it, it can be very flexible. And the current ordinance is very good about that. Minimum lot sizes of 1/4 acre, very flexible frontages and setbacks because you're clustered. Now, the current process is, we are not getting conservation subdivisions for 2 reasons. Most of the land is residence, coastal, and rural. That's where the land is. And it's very complicated and burdensome, and a 3-step process, which is just very difficult and expensive. And 2, the density is minuscule. That's why we have not gotten any development proposals. Since I've been here, we've had 2 conservation subdivisions on Mill Road and Garrish Drive, but those are both Residence B, which is much higher density. That's why we've seen those 2. Excuse me. Affordable housing is really hard to do. You know, I would love to see workforce housing get built and as a percentage of projects, but it's hard to do. It's hard to make the numbers work. If we get some nice conservation subdivisions built in the future, and it's small, and we get some missing middle, some housing choices, but it's expensive, I'll be disappointed, but I think it's just very hard to do affordable housing these days. And if we can get more housing, more choices, missing middle, that's going to be a home run. And if we can provide some incentives and get some affordable housing, all to the better. So that's it. So I will work on a rough draft ordinance in the coming December 12th, 10th or beyond.
Well, let's.
But depending on what order you want to go with our projects.
Yeah, we'll figure that out during our later discussion in other business.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Any questions for Michael?
Not yet.
All right. Item 12, 2026 schedule of planning board meetings and deadline. I haven't had a chance to actually check these dates against holidays.
Sure, Michael.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Oh, I passed that out, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a calendar here.
It's almost impossible for us to get through a year without hitting at least 2.
But then we make adjustments when it comes. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no
We've
big
done it
deal.
before, when we don't know about a holiday.
So work with that.
All right, does that look all right? If you notice something later, we can always change it.
It looks fine.
All right. Review of minutes for October 8th and October 22nd.
Which one are we doing first, Mr.
We'll
Chairman?
do the 8th first. We'll, calendar order works for me.
All right.
I was absent.
I was absent too.
Are we going to see about getting the minutes highlighted on the agenda that's online?
Oh, say that again?
Are we looking into getting
Getting the hot linked.
the,
Oh, right,
minutes hot
right.
link? Because it
Oh,
is,
aren't they in the bottom there?
they're not hot
No.
linked,
They're
as you
not.
say.
They're not. You
they're
have
not.
They,
you have to go chasing back through the.
You have to go chasing back through emails or whatever. It would be great if they could do that.
if you scroll all the way to the bottom.
What?
The minutes are on
aren't
next to the
they-
agenda.
Oh, there they
Yeah.
are.
Oh, okay.
The minutes are in
Yeah.
the calendar.
So while there isn't a hot link on the agenda, they're with
There,
the,
if you scroll.
Oh, you got to go
below it.
all the way down.
Yeah.
Okay. It would be great if you could do it like you do the
Yeah, Tracy,
but she
that
can't.
works at the bottom there, right? Because she wasn't able to get them into the main agenda
Okay.
for some reason.
That's fine.
Yeah, they're just not loading right now.
does anyone have any changes?
I did not have any
I
changes.
didn't.
All right. And Julian, are we all set with the 8th?
Yeah, I went through this, I skimmed through it, I didn't see any problem.
All right, motion to approve the minutes of October 8th?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, abstentions? Peyton, Rob?
So that's 5:02.
Yes. And minute for 22nd, any changes?
And I was not
Julian
here.
has one.
Yes,
I
Julian?
noticed a bunch on page 8. Let's see, line 18 on page 8. There's something, meetings for the first stage of the Mill Plaza renovations, blah, blah. I think take out the word renovations and try design and construction of the first building. Or, well, okay, the first stage of the Mill Plaza. For the,
Isn't that what
Okay.
there's,
renovations?
I don't know whether the first stage has to do with the first stage of doing something, or it means the first building.
Well, it was you talking about yourself.
So what do you recollect?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to go with, Julian.
I was 3
Let's leave it the way it is.
All right.
Okay, now line 22. Mr. Smith asked the planner, not the planning, the planner. And then line 32, I think the last part of that sentence in 32 has to do with creating a conditional use. Or is there such thing as a, how can you apply for creating an existing use? You can't create an existing use because it exists. So are we talking about a conditional use here?
Think about the process and apply for create.
Line 32.
I don't remember what Michael was talking about there.
So we're talking about the parking. We're talking about how, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could lease some of the parking there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Michael
or-
says the board could
An
encourage
additional
them to
use?
think about the process and apply
Yeah.
for conditional use, is that it?
a
Yeah,
conditional
yeah, and
use.
I reached out to them anyway, and I'll let you know if I hear back from them.
So we're gonna put
Change the word
CU there?
existing to conditional.
conditional use.
All right.
Yeah, I'd suggest
Yeah,
conditional.
so it's apply for a conditional use. Okay. Anything more? I'll move that we accept the minutes of October 22nd as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an abstain.
Abstain?
Two abstentions.
Did you vote for the, did you vote? All right,
He voted.
he voted, so
Yes.
he's using that.
Ray on it.
All right, so that was a
That makes sense.
601? Your vote was,
Abstain.
yeah, 601.
Yeah, I wasn't
then.
here.
Okay. And now we're into other business. So, it wasn't the last, the at town council meeting, Doug and Michael presented their thoughts on a four-story with gable roofs or setback for the downtown areas. It was I think we were just doing the area that current has the existing restrictions on it, is what you were talking about.
Yes.
And the town council looked at that and they said, okay, well, let's have the planning board look at it and consider that as whether or not that would work for us. Now, what I found very interesting about it is earlier, as Heather mentioned, they had just received an update on their climate action plan, and during the entire discussion about what we were doing on in the downtown, they not once tried to hook back with how these changes would interact with the climate action plan goals. Since gabled roofs, sloped roofs on Main Street in these areas would preclude any use of solar panels on the roofs, because they'd be facing the wrong way and things like that. So I think, the impression I got is the town council was looking at the aesthetics, and only the aesthetics, and they kind of missed looking at the whole package, which is what they're asking us to do, is look at the whole package. Did I cover everything? Do either of
I think
you
it
have
was,
anything
it's
to
definitely
add?
more, it's just, it was focused on the compromise from the three-story max in general. So I think that there's an agreement, obviously, that we need density in the downtown area, but they were trying to compromise on the height thing for that area. So if 42 isn't the right number, and we have good facts around it, I think we just need to talk about it as a group and decide what we think might need to be adjusted to make buildable lots on the downtown area, fact-based, so that we can feed that back to the town council. But I think our problem is that we're not doing a lot of fact-based discussions on it in terms of listening to builders. And I think that the information we saw tonight is good, and I think we need more of that. I think, that's good information.
Facts about that Roger brought.
But yeah, that Roger brought up.
Roger, that we
And
got
the
from
architect.
Riverwoods, that we got from,
Yeah.
So, with all of that update now, what I'd like to do is bring the downtown discussion back to our front desk.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Have you received the information from the town council?
No,
Not yet.
Not
I'll
officially.
Send that out soon.
Oh, okay. So it's in your?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was in Todd's.
No, I'll put that together.
Okay.
So what, it was basically 37 to what could be considered an eve, and then 42 max height, with a 10-foot setback if it's a flat roof building. Now, I think, I'd like to see again, kind of regroup on, if that's just for where the three-story max is now, what do we say in the other zones? I don't remember what the height requirement that we have is for the rest of the downtown area.
And that's one of the things that'll come
I was
up.
about really to.
During the night,
discussion.
there was the whole discussion about where it should apply, how it should apply. I pointed out that one of the things, one of our goals in putting the initial amendment together was to get rid of the zoning by footnote which is that, how that zone was managed. Which means we might need to break CB1 up again into, if we're going to have different rules in different parts of CB1, then they shouldn't be the same zone,
Right.
right?
CB1, CB2, and CB3.
Yeah.
It's such a small area already, though. I mean,
There's-
You know,
It's barely
Well,
a
the
city,
other thing
it's not
is-
even a
Well,
city block.
it's just
Or if we come back and say, you know what, we can do one set of rules that we think applies everywhere, and we just send that back to the town council. That's an option too. But that is a discussion that I think we should be
We're gonna have to
forefront
have
with us, which is why I think conservation subdivision is going to get backburnered for a while.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that we can focus on downtown.
I agree.
I agree. If we could have, when you send out that information, if you could just send out all the specs as to what is where in CB1, even in CB2. Because I think we have to understand fully, because it is very convoluted, and you get these big, long paragraphs that read off tax map, whatever, 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 and it's very confusing. And I just think that zoning should be not based on so much of esoteric or people's thoughts on design or what something should look like or aesthetics, but zoning, the whole reason zoning exists is to create communities that are viable and allow people to use their property, in quiet enjoyment of their property, and to make it profitable, especially in the business zones. So they have to be, you have to be able to improve your property. And if zoning is not allowing you to improve your property, then the zoning is broken.
There's-
This says 30 feet all the way around.
There's one more thing I want to add to this. I'd like to, the Housing Task Force had prepared some information for us, which is going to overlap with this, so I would like to get the presentation from the Housing Task Force as the first item that we do next with regards to the downtown.
When are we going to see those documents, those
Which ones?
from the Housing Task Force?
I was hoping at our next
We,
meeting.
in December?
Yes.
What's the date on that?
December 10th?
Okay. That's fine.
So do you
We already
want
have it
to,
marked up, right?
We have it, and we have the documents are available on the planning board site.
Really?
We could send
Yeah,
them
they
everything.
are.
It's all, it just hasn't been formally presented to
Yeah,
us.
it's
But all
current,
the, but the documentations, you just need to know where to go looking for it. Is it on the planning board site or the Housing Task Force site?
it's not on the Housing Task Force site, and it should be on that, but
planning board,
it's
it's under current projects.
current
Planning board.
information and applications.
Is it
Under
CB
plan?
district, remove three-story height?
No, it's.
No, it
Did you see it on there?
It's under
So,
present.
Michael, could you send an email out this week to the planning board with?
It's residential
showing
development
where that
proposed by
stuff
the
is?
Housing Task
Yeah.
Force.
Or
Sidewalk.
sending links?
So
Yeah,
Did it
well,
lock?
yeah, and it's hard to find, it's pretty deep.
Yeah,
It's
so
pretty deep.
I'm going to have.
What do you mean, the draft?
To find,
Find it is not
to
easy.
find
Isn't
it,
it just on current?
you go to current information and applications, and then you have to go down to.
Sorry, excuse me.
Residential
There you
development
go,
proposed
that's
by- Yeah, that's what I mean by deep,
Well, we got a lot of current stuff on there. You know, that's hanging
it's there.
around.
It's there, so it
Okay,
is there.
So what should we read? Should we read the top thing, proposed amendment, or the presentation?
Look at the amendment, and then,
Sally, how about sending that to the planning board? So that
The
we go and-
presentation?
So that it's in our inbox and we can go find it later whenever we have time.
The presentation or the proposed?
well, the presentation is there.
Well, the link has a
The link
bunch
is
of
there,
stuff on
yeah.
it, doesn't it?
Well, if you click on that, you get the text, you get the tables, and the presentation that was done at the Housing Task Force. It's all right there. A supporting document.
So we need to have this, we need to be right up on that by when?
agenda?
For
Yes.
On our
So,
December agenda.
Do you
all right.
want to put like the four-story height thing, 1, and then 2 is the housing recommendations?
You want the presentation and then
I'm-
get into the,
The other way around.
I think the other way around.
So the proposed amendments from the Housing Task Force, and then 1 and then 2, the four-story height issue.
Yeah, after our applications, because we have 2 public hearings.
Right.
I was thinking of, for the planning board, present it for the most part the same way because it allows us to just get out of tables and allows us to just talk about what I'm proposing, but maybe get more visuals. I don't know.
We do have that one good visual from Doug Banks about the pitched roof.
Oh, well, I'm
We'll
talking
incorporate-
about this, that's,
Oh, these.
I'm talking about the housing task force.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch that whole discussion. What was the gist? We want 3 stories, 4 stories, or was
Whose
it we
gist?
want X feet?
Councils,
They agree to go to 4 stories, they as in the
they
public.
don't want to.
Right.
4 stories, 5 by,
But they didn't get hung up on a
It is
story is
conditions.
11 or 12 feet, right? Because
Well, they were,
kind of,
they
All
were,
they have is the
they
max
were,
height,
we
4
did.
stories,
So
but only a certain height.
yeah,
Okay.
they wanted to limit it to 42 feet.
They didn't want to go.
as opposed
I
to
know.
like saying story, to me, I would think about it, stories is the key thing, and is it 3
They were,
feet higher?
they were
or-
focusing on, see, Beth wanted her gabled roofs peaked at 42 feet, which effectively makes a 3-story building with with an attic as a 4th story.
With a crawl space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes undesirable rentals.
And anytime somebody moved away from that, she got up and complained.
But
Right,
then the
well,
other one was.
We just need
for
to
a-
put those 2 like notions together and then decide, is there really a material difference between 42 and 45 feet or 50
Well, I
feet?
think that came out, right? It's,
I mean, there was a
The
very
facts
nice,
are there.
well-designed 49-foot building, 51 feet, that
Yeah.
has 4 stories.
and parking
Oh, which
with that
was
bottom,
that?
that was
So
what we
the
just
building
looked
that was
at.
just proposed.
Riverwoods, 49
Those
feet.
two new
Yeah.
I mean,
buildings.
that's why I called it out. I was like, it's clearly a
49
49,
feet,
52-foot
And
building.
that's to support a building that has parking on the first floor, which if we're going to be doing residences with parking, we're going to be asking them to put some parking in. So we're going to have parking on,
Well,
you're going to need that
you-
11-foot first floor.
And part of the
minimum.
magic is creating value, right? A high ceiling floor with nice open trusses that you never see, but that's where all the mechanicals
If-
shoot through cheaply. That's how you build cheaply, is having
Yeah.
a nice open floor that you can run things through and then just drop walls wherever the right place is. So I think getting hung up on a particular exact height can get us in trouble because what we build isn't as functional as it could be
Well,
otherwise.
if you're going to get hung up on a
And more
particular opinion of aesthetics. Instead of viability of what zoning is supposed to do.
So what's our task here?
Well, you
Is
can
our
do
task-
both. You can do it beautiful and
Thank you, Peyton.
functional.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our task is to redo it again. To take a look at all the suggestions that we've been getting. We got the housing task force from the town council, whatever. And then I also want to we need data to
Yeah.
say, here's what we know will work. So we're going to have to figure out how to make it pencil, which I'll work on. I'll get some people, I know some people
There
who
are
can
some
do
people
that.
that can do that.
So I'll hit my contacts for, what
Reality?
the reality check is with regards to what will be necessary to make a project viable. And we put that all together and, and hopefully come up with something that will make everybody happy. Or
It seems
will
if
work.
it-
Won't make everybody, they'll make everybody unhappy.
Promise you
But the key thing that the town council, I think, wants as a whole is a viable redevelopment plan for the town
Absolutely.
council.
You have to.
I think I mean, when you look at it, when they went to 42, it's not that much of a stretch if you get to 45. But that's, I mean, the other thing that was going on that night also was that it wasn't just 42, it was going to be a 4-foot building at 42 max with a 20-foot setback. And the council, after hearing the feedback from the architect from the UNH, which I can never remember,
He said
he said that he didn't agree that with with the 20-foot, and we went with, we voted on 10 setback on the 4th story.
I think we got a good indication from Mr. AG tonight, and he said their rule of thumb is 44 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter?
Do we have a mandate from above to hit a price point on this?
No.
I think it's more of there's,
It's a can it get built point.
there's.
What do you mean
That's the only price point
for
we're really
like
interested in, is
affordable
something that can
housing?
get built.
What do you mean by that?
Well, are we talking, $600,000 condos, or are we talking
No.
starter things?
They're talking about
1 or 2 bedroom apartment.
1 and 2 bedroom
But
apartment.
why should we be in the business of that? If someone can figure out, given the height that we propose, or that's allocated, if they can figure out how to make that
We
work.
shouldn't be,
Right.
but which was
Well, it's
part of my
develop-
question, was whether we've been,
It's developable space, and I think that the concern is the fact that most of the properties that we're talking about are one-story buildings that are completely undervalued and are in danger of lowering their assessed values. If you had a conversation with Mr. Hayden about his specific properties, you'd realize that he's on the verge of that. And that if that cannot be developed, then it stays the way it is, and there is a high risk that it's just going to become another convenience store.
Okay,
I
so
think
we're
the-
all on board with that notion. So what's our next step for?
Our next step forward would be, like I said, we'll get the information from the housing, review the Housing Task Force information, recommendations,
That's separate from the.
which had a lot to do with like dimensions and things, most of it.
Are you talking about the Housing Task Force, or are you talking about the Downtown Housing Task Force recommendations? You want me to present the
Downtown.
overall?
Primarily, I care about the downtown.
Oh, so you want me to present the downtown,
I-
the original downtown? I'm
Why don't we
confused.
just get
Well,
the,
the only thing now is the four-story question.
Yeah.
This is looking at
I don't
you.
know why we would want to kind of conflate those two.
I think we should get the feedback from
Because-
the town council and focus
Oh,
on.
we'll see. Okay,
what
we'll
we
see
can
where
do
it
to
Yeah,
structure
yeah.
that.
We'll see where it
Because
goes.
the presentation of the proposed changes does not address the downtown at all. Unless
Or
you
want the
want,
downtown before the broad housing task force?
I would do
things
the
then?
downtown
All right,
before the broad.
So you're telling me that the Housing Task Force doesn't really need to provide anything before we go into,
Well, I'm just asking okay, just let me clear. The Housing Task Force had a proposal for the downtown that was centered on the downtown that included the 4-story. All right, we presented those piece by piece with the multi-family housing and all that, and the 4-story to the council, and it was council initiated. Then the
Okay,
Housing
you're right,
Task Force
you're right.
did a separate thing, which was overall the whole town, which doesn't include a downtown development, it does cover commercial areas, but not the downtown. So that'd be completely separate, which is probably, if we're gonna be
Right, all
focusing
right,
on
all right.
downtown.
then I
We
want that actually before we do the conservation subdivision stuff, because that has to do with
Okay,
all the other zones.
so we'll do
So,
you do
Building
the-
height.
so,
The
so.
building height and then all the rest of the housing task.
so
Housing
we'll-
Task Force.
So we don't need the Housing Task Force stuff at the December meeting.
Oh,
right.
Because we're doing building
Because
height.
that-
We're just going to go,
We're
we're
just
just going
gonna
to go
go-
straight into the
so,
downtown.
The four-
is that, so
Okay.
we have 2 public hearings and
And
the
then
4-story, and that's,
and
you don't want a
4-story.
4th item on there?
No.
No.
And Chair, just a question, just for anyone that's watching and then myself as well. So what's the exact process here that would go forward, and what are we responsible for? And then what will the town council be responsible
We are
for in this?
responsible for everything at this point.
Can
we
we,
would-
can we both modify, I guess, the ordinance for this 4-story and then pass that? And does that go into effect, or does it get
No,
kicked
that-
back to
No.
the
so
town?
then
No,
we
it
have to
goes
do a
back to the
public
town
hearing,
council.
and
So
then
we
can
have-
Take it to the town council again.
We have a blank slate that we're working with. We have all these ideas that have been pitched at us. We need to put together something to send back to the town
We
council.
have the presentation, we have the recommendations from the council as to what they have decided it should be.
So we have the town council's feedback that we can,
We have to
They
tweak
want
it.
us to
Discuss.
review, yes.
and then we will update our language and then send it back to the town council?
We send our recommendations back to the town council.
And then do they have another public hearing at
And
that
they have
point?
another public
Yes.
hearing,
Yes.
too.
Which in,
And so do you.
Yeah, we'll have
right,
one.
and then
have
we'll
one
have
too.
another public hearing.
Start the process
Do we have the
over.
public hearing before we send it to town council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we pushed, we could have it by mid-February, done, ready,
Back to the council.
blessed.
The sooner the
I'll,
better.
I'll answer that question after I see how the December meeting goes.
Yeah,
And-
we
and-
should be trying to push.
Not to
hard
go
and
to
fast.
my sort of lesson that I think I learned or that I saw as part of the wetland shoreland overlay district consolidation. But on a lot of these things, the no's come out, and then when you're impacting someone else, they come out as well. So in this case, it's quite possible you heard from quite a few no's in terms of height, but now when we're eliminating that height, we're also hearing from people where they're saying, well, it directly impacts me, like we just heard tonight. The thing with that is the people that are directly impacted, it's a very small number. And the people that are sort of outlying the area that just want to have an opinion on are a rather large number.
Right.
So I guess it's a conflict there
Yep.
between the number of people directly impacted versus the number of people who have opinions on it.
Correct.
You get yes, the catch-22, as you danced around, is we never hear from the people who are in favor.
That's right.
Because only people that don't like it come out, or don't care, or don't have a thought on it.
So and I'm not going to foretell the future here, but my sense is that we can make some changes here and we're probably still going to hear the same no's that we heard.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly the
Yeah.
same,
Absolutely.
The issue.
We'll have to bring facts to change it, and then the council will have to decide what they're gonna do, because they've gotta do something.
We've gotta
Yeah, we
figure out
have
if we're
to
gonna
come
listen
up
to
with all the objections ahead of time and answer all what we think are the likely objections to anything we create. That way, you short-circuit that loop
I
of,
mean, we did just see a very professional and well-designed complex at that four-story, constraint limit
Yeah.
that hit height limit that seemed totally reasonable and passed.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And it had 49, its median roof height was 49 feet with gabled roofs.
that's right.
So if you use that transect concept that Michael was talking about, maybe we should start at 7 stories in town, right?
Well, that's
Well,
what,
Work it out, right?
You're exactly right, actually. You are right. That's exactly
well, that's
right.
where your density has to be, but your density has to be,
You have to balance the fact that we are a
reflects
small town.
the basic overall.
For how long?
It'll go up.
We're either nothing or we're something, but 7 stories on Main Street, nobody's gonna do that.
I mean, look at most college
Right,
towns.
that's true. We only do it on Garrison.
I think if you were to look at flagship universities across the country, most flagship universities would probably have a fair number of those buildings in their downtown.
Yeah,
I mean, if you were to
They'd
just do a
start-
random sample,
yeah.
I think you'd probably come up with that
Penn State
for
does it.
flagship
It's
universities.
small.
it's eventually gonna happen, or the downtown.
And as I noted, I think there are more than 100 buildings at UNH that are more than 5 stories. So it's not like we don't have the buildings in the town.
And one of them is
Yes.
right up the road from the main
The
downtown.
surrounding downtown are 4 and 5-story buildings. But
Okay. Yes. So we will continue this discussion at our next meeting.
Are we done?
And you can, like I say, so make your notes of what you want to say and what you think is very important, and be ready to bring them to the table.
Count for any objections.
Yeah, and I'll send out, soon I'll send out what the council came up with.
And if you could send out the rules, the present rules,
Oh,
Yeah, I'll just.
and where is what?
We were
Yeah.
talking about having the EV charging draft to review the December meeting so that we could schedule a public hearing. That will be our 4th thing, make it number 3.
Yeah. So we have the 2 public hearings for the 2 applications, the 4-story height thing, and then the EV draft regs.
Yeah, and that should be hopefully a 5-minute thing, so we can do that third and then focus on the 4-story thing.
Oh, so, wait, you want to do the EV thing before the 4-story?
Yeah.
We're just going to review the draft to make sure that it's clean enough for a public hearing. and schedule a public hearing. Right? No, I keep,
EV, we have some
Did we have,
conversation.
were we close to having a draft? or-
oh, no.
We
no,
did
no,
not
no,
have
no.
it, no.
I keep thinking,
we-
I am in my
We need to
head.
work on that.
Yes. My
No,
problem
we-
is I am in my head.
Okay.
So here's my thoughts on that, real quick. My thoughts are, we shouldn't be mandating it for anything that has residential uses, but we should be considering providing an incentive if they do it. Maybe we give them a density bonus. I like the idea of a density bonus if they put EVs into
Yeah.
place.
Well,
All right? For commercial, I think it should be, let the market determine it. And we
well,
don't,
yeah.
we don't do anything.
We're probably going to have, why don't we just discuss it that night? Because I know that we're
So-
not all
I think it
agreeing.
was still pretty squishy.
It's very squishy. I don't think the
Yeah, it's
document as
squishy.
it's written is, in my opinion, acceptable.
Right, well, yeah.
You want to just continue the discussion? on the-
I think we need to come to terms as to what we're doing
I think that
and
makes
agree.
sense.
What if,
Yeah.
We all had homework, remember?
do we?
Continue the
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
continue the
that's the
discussion.
homework, so let's do that. So, yeah, let's do the EV charging one first, but I'll cut the discussion short if need be, so we have some time to talk about downtown.
You don't mean first, you mean third.
Yeah,
So we had, right, the two
terms
public
of the zoning.
hearings, and then EV discussion.
because
and
these
then
two public
four-story.
hearings should be, I mean, I could have them both out by 7:30 if the light goes right.
Well, isn't our biggest priority figuring out how to maybe get something to happen downtown? And that should be like right on ahead of EV. Just work that problem until we get it. Because we
Well-
have like pending deals that
Well, we
have
had-
discussed.
We have, there is a deal that
It's,
this,
okay, well, it's up, last time we said we'd be doing one biggie, one little one, try to keep them have both things going. If we want to focus just on the big one, we can do that.
well, the council sent it to us, and usually that's priority.
Well, yeah, why don't you just do the two public hearings, take whatever time you need on the downtown, and then
Yeah.
remaining time.
We
you
good
got
with
the
that?
EV.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
All
agree.
right, let's do that. And that's the night.